Hello, I'm reading from Autobiography of a Yogi, starting on page 126. Breakfast did not follow. First came a long walk by the Ganges. Those morning strolls with my guru, how real and vivid still. In the easy reconstruction of memory, I often find myself by his side. The early sun is warming the river. My voice rings out. His voice rings out, rich with the authenticity of wisdom. A bath, then the midday meal. This preparation, according to Master's daily directions, had been the careful task of young disciples. My guru was a vegetarian. Before embracing monkhood, however, he had eaten eggs and fish. His advice to students was to follow any simple diet which proved suited to one's constitution. Master ate little, often rice, sprinkled with turmeric or juice of beets or spinach, and lightly sprinkled with buffalo ghee or melted butter. Another day he might have had lentil dal or chana curry with vegetables. For dessert, mangoes or oranges with rice pudding or jackfruit juice. Visitors appeared in the afternoons. A steady stream poured from the world into the tranquil hermitage. My guru treated all guests with courtesy and kindness. A master, one who has realized himself as the omnipresent soul, not the body or the ego, perceives in all men a striking similarity. The impartiality of saints is rooted in wisdom. They are no longer influenced by the alternating faces of Maya, no longer subject to the likes and dislikes that confuse the judgment of unenlightened men. Sri Yukteswar showed no special consideration to those who were powerful, rich, or accomplished. Neither did he slight others for their poverty or illiteracy. He would listen respectfully to the words of truth, from a child, and on occasion would openly ignore a conceited pundit. 8 o'clock was the supper hour, and sometimes found lingering guests. My guru would not excuse himself to eat alone. None left his ashram hungry or dissatisfied. Sri Yukteswar was never at a loss, never dismayed by unexpected visitors. Under his resourceful directions to the disciples, scanty food would emerge a banquet. Yet he was economical. His modest funds went far. Be comfortable within your purse, he often said. Extravagance will bring you discomfort. Whether in the details of hermitage entertainment or of building and repair work or other practical concerns, Master manifested the originality of a creative spirit. Quiet evening hours often brought one of my guru's discourses, treasures against time. His every utterance was chiseled by wisdom. A sublime self-assurance marked his mode of expression. It was unique. He spoke as none other in my experience ever spoke. His thoughts were weighed in a delicate balance of discrimination before he permitted them the outward garb of speech. The essence of truth, all pervasive with even a psychological aspect, came from him like a fragrant exudation of the soul. I was conscious always that I was in the presence of a living manifestation of God. The weight of his divinity automatically bowed my head before him. If guests detected that Sri Yukteswar was becoming engrossed with the infinite, he quickly engaged them in conversation. He was incapable of striking a pose or of flaunting his inner withdrawal. Always one with the Lord, he needed no separate time for communion. A self-realized master has already left behind the stepping stone of meditation. The flower falls when the fruit appears, but the saints often cling to spiritual forms in order to set an example for disciples. As midnight approached, my guru might fall into a doze with the naturalness of a child. There was no fuss about bedding. He often lay down even without even a pillow on a narrow davenport which was the background for his customary tiger skin seat. A night-long philosophical discussion was not rare. Any disciple could summon it by integrity of interest. I felt no tiredness then, no desire for sleep. Master's living words were sufficient. "Oh, it is dawn. Let us walk by the Ganges." So ended many of my periods of nocturnal edification. My early months with Sri Yukteswar culminated in a useful lesson: how to outwit a mosquito. At home, my family used protective curtains at night. I was dismayed to discover that in the Semaphore Hermitage this prudent custom was honored in the breach. Yet the insects were in full residence. I was bitten from head to toe. My guru took pity on me. "Buy yourself a curtain and also one for me," he laughed and added, "If you buy only one for yourself, all mosquitoes will concentrate on me." I was more than thankful to comply. On every night that I spent in Saramapur, my guru would ask me to arrange the bedtime curtains. One night, when a cloud of mosquitoes surrounded us, Master failed to issue his usual instructions. I listened nervously in the anticipatory hum of the insects. Getting into bed, I threw a propitiatory prayer in their general direction. A half an hour later, I coughed pretentiously to attract my guru's attention. I thought I would go mad, but with the bites, especially the singing drone as the mosquitoes celebrated bloodthirsty rites. No responsive stir from Master, I approached him cautiously. He was not breathing. This was my first close observation of him in the yogic trance. It filled me with fright. His heart must have failed. I placed a mirror under his nose. No breath vapor appeared. To make doubly certain, for minutes I closed his mouth and nostrils with my fingers. His body was cold and motionless. In a daze, I turned towards the door to summon help. So, a budding experimentalist. My poor nose. Master's voice was shaky with laughter. "Why don't you go to bed? Is the whole world going to change for you? Change yourself. Be rid of the mosquito consciousness." Meekly I returned to bed. Not one insect ventured near. I realized that my guru had previously agreed to the curtains only to please me. He had had no fear of mosquitoes. By yogic power he could prevent them from biting him, or, if he chose, he could escape to an inner invulnerability. He was giving me a demonstration, I thought. That is the yogic state I must strive to attain. A true yogi is able to pass into and maintain the superconscious state regardless of multitudinous distractions never absent from this earth: the buzz of insects, the pervasive glare of the daylight. In the first state of samadhi, the devotee shuts off all sensory testimony of the outer world. He is rewarded by sounds and scenes of the inner realms, fairer than the pristine Eden. The instructive mosquitoes served for another early lesson at the ashram. It was the gentle hour of dusk. My guru was matchlessly interpreting the ancient texts. At his feet I was in perfect peace. A rude mosquito entered the idol and competed for my attention. As it dug its poisonous hypodermic needle into my thigh, I automatically raised an avenging hand. Reprieved from impending execution, an opportune memory had come to me of Patanjali's aphorism on ahamasa, harmlessness. "Why didn't you finish the job? Master, do you advocate taking life?" "No, but in your mind you had already struck the death blow." I don't understand. By Ahamas, Pantajali meant removal of the desire to kill. Sir Yutiswaras had found my mental processes an open book. This world is inconveniently arranged for a literal practice of Hamasa. A man may be compelled to exterminate harmful creatures. He is not under a similar compulsion to feel anger or animosity. All forms of life have an equal right to the air of Maya. The saint who uncovers the secret of creation will be in harmony with nature's countless bewildering expressions. All men may understand this truth by overcoming the passion for destruction. Guruji, should one offer himself a sacrifice rather than kill a wild beast? No, man's body is precious. It has the highest evolutionary value because of unique brain and spinal centers. These enable the advanced devotee fully to grasp and express the loftiest aspects of divinity. No lower form is so equipped. It is true that man incurs the debt of a minor sin if he is forced to kill an animal or any other living thing. But the holy Shastras teach that wanton loss of human life is a serious transgression against the karmatic law. I sighed in relief. Scriptural reinforcement of one's natural instincts is not always forthcoming. Master, so far as I know, was never at close quarters with a leopard or tiger, but a deadly cobra once confronted him only to be conquered by his love. The encounter took place in Puri, where my guru had a seaside hermitage. Prafula, a young disciple of Sri Yutiswar's later years, was with Master on the occasion. We were seated outdoors near the ashram, Prafula told me. A cobra appeared nearby, a 4-foot length of sheer terror. Its hood was angrily expanded as it raced towards us. Master gave a welcoming chuckle as though to a child. I was filled with consternation to see Yuri Shutsquar engage in a rhythmical clapping of hands. He was entertaining the dread visitor. I remained completely quiet, inwardly ejaculating fervent prayers. The serpent very close to Master was now motionless, seemingly magnetized by his caressing attitude. The frightful hood gradually contracted. The snake slithered between Yutiswar's feet and disappeared into the bushes. Why Master would move his hands and why the cobra would not strike them is inexplicable to me then. Prafula concluded. I have since come to realize that our divine guru is beyond fear of hurt from any creature. One afternoon during my early months at the ashram, I found Sir Yutiswaras fixed on me piercingly. You are too thin, Mukunda. His remark struck a sensitive point. My sunken eyes and emaciated appearance was not to my liking. Chronic dyspepsia had afflicted me since childhood. Many bottles of tonic stood on a shelf in my room at home. None had helped me. Occasionally I would sadly ask myself if life was worthwhile in a body so unsound. Medicines have limitations. The divine creative life force has none. Believe that you shall be well and strong. Master's words instantly convinced me that I could successfully apply their truth in my own life. No other healer, and I had tried many, had been able to arouse in me such profound faith. Day by day I waxed in health and strength. Through Sri Yutiswar's hidden blessing, in 2 weeks I gained the weight I had vainly sought in my past. My stomach ailments vanished permanently. On later occasions I was privileged to witness my guru's divine healings of persons suffering from diabetes, epilepsy, tuberculosis, or paralysis. Years ago, I too was anxious to put on weight, Master told me shortly after he had healed me. During convalescence after a severe illness, I visited Lahara Masaya in Benares. Sir, I said, I have been very sick and have lost many pounds. I see, Yutaswar, you have made yourself unwell, and now you think you are thin. This reply was far from the one I expected. My guru, however, added encouragingly, Let me see. I am sure you ought to feel better tomorrow. My receptive mind accepted his words as a hint that he was secretly healing me. The next morning I sought him out and exclaimed exultingly, Sir, I feel much better today. Indeed, today you invigorate yourself. No, Master, I protest, it was you who helped me. This is the first time in weeks I have had any energy. Oh yes, your malady has been quite serious. Your body is frail yet. Who can say how it will be tomorrow? The thought of a possible return of my weakness brought me a shudder of cold fear. The following morning I could hardly drag myself to Mahayamasha's home. Sir, I am ailing again. The Guru's glance was quizzical. So, once more you indispose yourself. My patience was exhausted. Guru Deva, I said, I realize now that day by day you have been ridiculing me. I don't understand why you disbelieve my truthful reports. Really, it has been your thoughts that have made you feel ultimately weak and strong. My guru looked at me affectionately. You have seen how your health was exactly followed by your subconscious expectations. Through a force even as electricity or gravitation. Thought is a force even as electricity or gravitation. The human mind is a spark of the almighty consciousness of God. I could show you that whatever your powerful mind believes very intensely would instantly come to pass. Knowing that Lahara Masaya never spoke idly, I addressed him with great awe and gratitude. Master, if I think that I am well and that I regain my former weight, shall those things come to pass? It is so, even at this moment. The Guru spoke gravely, his gaze concentrated on my eyes. I instantly felt an increase not only of strength but of weight. Lahara Masaya retreated into silence. After a few hours at his feet, I returned to my mother's house where I stayed during my visit in Benares. My son, what is the matter? You are smelling with dropsy. Mother could hardly believe her eyes. My body was now full and robust as it had been before my illness. I weighed myself and found that in one day I had gained 50 pounds. They have remained permanently. Friends and acquaintances who have seen my thin figure were overcome with amazement. A number of them changed their mode of life and became disciples of Lahara Masaya as a result of this miracle. My Guru, awake in God, knew this world to be nothing but an objectivized dream of the Creator. Because he was completely aware of his unity with the Divine Dreamer, Lahara Masaya could materialize or dematerialize or make any other change he wished in the dream atoms of the phenomenal world. All creation is governed by law, Yutaswar concluded, and principles that operate in the outer universe discoverable by scientists are called natural laws, but there are subtler laws that rule the hidden spiritual planes and the inner realm of consciousness. These principles are knowable through the science of yoga. It is not the physicist but the self-realized master who comprehends the true nature of matter. By such knowledge Christ was able to restore the servant's ear after it had been severed by one of his disciples. There's an asterisk there. It says, and one of them smote the servant of the high priest and cut off his right ear. And Jesus answered and said, Suffer ye thus far. And he touched his ear and healed him. That's Luke 22:50-51. My guru was a peerless interpreter of the scriptures. Many of my happiness memories are centered in his discourses, but his jeweled thoughts were not cast into the ashes of heedlessness or stupidity. One restless movement of his body or slight lapse in absent-mindedness would suffice to put an abrupt period to Master's exposition. "You are not here," Yutaswar interrupted himself one afternoon with this observation. As usual, he was keeping relentless track of my attention. "Guruji," my tone was a protest, "I have not stirred. My eyelids have not moved. I can repeat each word you have uttered. Nevertheless, you are not fully with me. Your objection forces me to remark that in your mental background you are creating three institutions. One was atop a sylvan retreat on a plain, another on a hilltop, still another by the ocean." These vaguely formulated thoughts had been present almost subconsciously. I glanced at him apologetically. What can I do with such a master who can penetrate my random musings? "You have given me that right. The subtle truths I am expounding cannot be grasped without your complete concentration. Unless necessary, I do not invade the seclusion of others' minds. Man has the natural privilege of roaming secretly among his thoughts. The unbidden Lord does not enter there. Neither do I venture intrusion. You are ever welcome, Master. Your architectural dreams will materialize later. Now is the time for study." Thus, incidentally, in his simple way, my guru revealed his knowledge of the coming of three important events in my life. Since my early youth I had enigmatic glimpses of three buildings, each in a different setting. In the exact sequence Sri Yutaswar had indicated, these visions took ultimate form. First came my founding of a boys' yoga school on a plain in Ranchi, then an American headquarters on a Los Angeles hilltop, then a hermitage in Encinitas, California, overlooking the vast Pacific. Master never arrogantly said, "I prophesy that such and such an event will occur." He would rather hint, "Don't you think it may happen?" But his simple speech hid Vatic power. There was no recanting. Never did his slightly veiled predictions prove false. Sri Yutaswar was reserved and matter-of-fact in demeanor. There was naught of the vague and daft visionary about him. His feet were firm on the earth, his head in the heaven of heaven. Practical people aroused his admiration. Saintliness is not dumbness. Divine perceptions are not incapacitating, he would say. The active expression of virtue gives rise to the keenest intelligence. My guru was reluctant to discuss the superphysical realms. His only marvelous aura was that of perfect simplicity. In conversation he avoided startling references. In action he was freely expressive. Many teachers talked of miracles but could manifest nothing. Sri Yutaswar seldom mentioned the subtle laws that secretly operated them at will. A man of realization does not perform any miracle until he receives an inward sanction. Master explained, God does not wish the secrets of his creation revealed promiscuously. Also, every individual in the world has an inalienable right to his free world. A saint cannot encroach on that independence. The silence habitual to Sri Yutaswar was caused by his deep perceptions of the infinite. No time remained for the interminable revelations that occupy the days of teachers without self-realization. A saying from the Hindu scripture is, "Shallow men, the fish of little thoughts, cause much commotion. The oceanic minds, the whales of inspiration, make hardly a ruffle." Because my guru's unspectacular guise, only a few of his contemporaries recognized him as a Superman. The adage, "He is a fool that cannot conceal his wisdom," could never be applied to my profound and quiet master. Though born immortal like all others, Yukteswar achieved identity with the ruler of time and space. Master found no insuperable obstacle to the emergence of human and divine. No such barrier exists, I came to understand, save in man's spiritual unadventurousness. I was always thrilled at the touch of Yukteswar's holy feet. A disciple is spiritually magnetized by reverent contact with his master. A subtle current is generated. The devotee's undesirable habit mechanisms in the brain are often as if cauterized. The grooves of his worldly tendencies are beneficially distributed. Momentarily, at least, he may find the secret veils of Maya lifting and glimpse the reality of bliss. My whole body responded with a liberating glow whenever I knelt in Indian fashion before my guru. Even when Lahara Masaya was silent, Master told me, or when he conversed with other than strictly religious topics, I discovered that nonetheless he was transmitted to me the ineffable knowledge. Yukteswar affected me similarly. If I had entered the hermitage in a worried or indifferent frame of mind, my attitude imperceptibly changed. A healing calm descended at the mere sight of my guru. Each day with him was a new experience in joy, peace, and wisdom. Never did I find him deluded or emotionally intoxicated with greed, anger, or human attachment. The darkness of Maya is silently approaching. Let us hie homeward within. With these cautionary words, Master constantly reminded his disciples to take their need for Kriya Yoga. A new student occasionally expressed doubts regarding his worthiness to engage in yoga practice. "Forget the past," Yukteswar would console him. "The vanished lives of all men are dark with many shames. Human conduct is ever unreliable until man is anchored in the divine. Everything in future will improve if you are making a spiritual effort now." Master always had young chelas, disciples, in his ashram. Their intellectual and spiritual education was his lifelong interest. Even shortly before he passed on, he accepted as hermitage residents 2 6-year-old boys and a youth of 16. All those in his charge were carefully trained. Disciple and discipline are etymologically and practically related. The ashram residents loved and revered their guru. A slight clap of his hand sufficed to bring them eagerly to his side. When his mood was silent and withdrawn, no one ventured to speak, yet his laugh rang jovially. Children looked upon him as their own. Yukteswar seldom asked others to render him a personal service, nor would he accept a chela's help unless it was offered cheerfully. Master himself would wash his clothes if the disciples forgot the privileged task. His usual garment was the traditional ochre-colored Swami robe. For indoor use he wore laceless shoes that had been made in accordance with yogi custom of tiger or deerskin. Yukteswar spoke fluent English, French, Bengali, and Hindi. His Sanskrit was fair. He patiently instructed his young disciples by certain shortcuts that he had ingeniously devised for the study of English and Sanskrit. Okay, that's it for today. I'm at the bottom of page 138. Goodbye.